Welcome to the Voluntary Option with your host, Peter Yaple.
Well, welcome to another Wednesday night here at the Voluntary Option, folks. The first choice, not the third party. That's the way I like to think of the LP. I don't want to think of us as just an afterthought, a wasted vote, or anything else. We are the first choice, in my opinion. Why? Because we truly believe in principle, liberty, and freedom. Let's face it. We live in a country, folks, where we claim to have all of these freedoms that the rest of the world doesn't have. And the more I look around me, the more I see those freedoms are either taken from us, infringed upon, tainted, or distorted into something that's anything but a free society. But we got some great guests on my show tonight. Tonight we're continuing to try to promote people that are running within the party and that are running on third party ballots to beat this duopoly down. I get tired of hearing constantly how if you're not voting red or blue, you're wasting your vote. And I keep getting told that if I'm not voting for Trump, then Biden will win. And if I'm not voting for Biden, then Trump will win. I just keep saying, as we're all 90 or 40% of us are either registered as libertarian, independent, we're not red or blue. We could win any election in which we decided we wanted to, with the people in which we support, in the parties in which we belong to. And it's been so long coming. It's been so long awaited. And tonight we have people that are running from county positions to state positions to federal positions. We have a presidential candidate on, as well as a governor's candidate run for a gubernatorial race. But listen, guys, the Voluntary Option is brought to you by me, Pete Yaple. And unfortunately, Pete Yaple is a poor man like the rest of the world. So we always ask everybody to support our productions by becoming a Patreon member. And you can easily become a Patreon member of our shows, which are the Voluntary Option, which you're watching now, or Can We Talk 420, which is a show we host on Tuesday evenings as well, me and my wife, by going to www.patreon.com/CWT420TVO. And you can sign up for 6 different levels, one of 6 different levels, starting at $5 and ranging up to $100 a month, be able to support this podcast, our other podcasts, our websites, all of the things we do, the travel in which we do our activism. All of these things are based upon and rely on the help of others to help us bring you the good news, as well as make you aware of the people around you that are running locally that can actually help you. Now, when you get to a $30 level on that, guys, you don't have to keep it pulled up, Jim. When you get to a $30 level on that and up, you start to receive product every month by mail, in the mail, and starts out with bars of medicated soaps, works its way up to facial treatments, as well as a CBD tincture. And by the time you're to 100, you'll receive them all monthly. Also, you can support us by visiting our Teespring account, which is www.teespring.com/stores/CWT420TVO -swag. And yes, on there you'll find coffee mugs, tank tops, t-shirts, stuff for your dog to wear, gaiters, I guess they call them, masks, all the crazy sayings on them. Some of them are political, some of them are satire, some of them are just promotional for our companies. But you can get your cups, you can get phone covers, you can get a tapestry like we got behind us with Voluntary Option. If you have swag you want made for yourself, please contact us. We'll put something together for you and we'll get it up there. But that's it right there. The Voluntary Option, the first choice, not a third party. Promote the LP, folks. Let's try to get people thinking in a positive and right way. That's the way I always try to do it. Well, listen, I'm going to get right to it tonight because I've got 4 guests. I had 5. Unfortunately, Melanie Black had to back out. She wasn't feeling well today when she got home today. And we hope she feels better. So we express to you, we hope you feel better. And again, there's still another show or 2 before the election's on. But Jim, why don't you do me a favor and bring my guests up so I can introduce them around the horn. And then we'll get a little bit more personal with them and find out what they're all got to offer us as Americans as a best choice. And as I see them pop up on the screen, I want to welcome you all to the Voluntary Option, guys. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule and joining me here tonight. I've got in the top left corner on my screen, I see Serene Aderlanou. And Serene is probably one of the most favorite people I've had the pleasure of meeting as we've been out covering and working during the presidential election and stuff. Me and Helen had the opportunity of meeting her in California at the convention. And Serene, I want to welcome you to the show. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Peter. It's an honor to be here and to connect with you and everyone else that's on the panel this evening.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and we can't wait. I can't wait to speak with you. I love your message of love, and I love your message of positivity. It's something that we spread here every day, as you know. Below her, I've got Dan Berman, and Dan, thank you so much for making it this week. I know there was a little screw up in the scheduling last week, but hey, man, it's always good to talk to you, and glad you're here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to be here.
Right. And listen, I'm going to the other two gentlemen. I'm very brand new to them, and I asked Ramon his name before, but I want him to introduce himself properly. That way, I don't screw up names, and that we get everybody out there so that they're well represented. And Ramon, will you please introduce yourself to our guests and let them know what you're running for as well?
Yes, so my name is Ramon Anthony Doan, and I'm running for U.S. Senate in the state of Colorado as the Libertarian nominee.
Excellent, excellent. I'm glad you took the time out of your schedule to join us. Colorado is a hot topic, especially my wife and I are big, huge cannabis activists, so we know you've got always got a lot of initiative going on with that. And I appreciate you again taking your time, taking the time. And Mr. Riggs, will you please do your own introduction as well? I'm glad that we have you with us, and thank you again for taking time out of your schedule.
Well, I thank you very much for the opportunity, but I got to tell you, you screwed up. You added an S to my name. It's Rig, not Rig.
Oh, Mr. Rig. Oh, I'm sorry. See that? And that's why I'm letting everybody do their own introductions. I tried not to do it.
I guess it was inevitable. It's no problem. But yeah, my name is Morgan Rig. I'm a candidate for Indiana State Representative in House District 52, which is in the northeast part of the state. I've been an active member of I've been a member of the party since December 2012, and I've been active really since I first became a delegate to the Indiana Libertarian Party of Indiana convention in 2015. I've been involved in some campaigns, including the Ruff Phillips presidential campaign last year, and I'm also helping out a little bit with Don Rainwater's campaign for governor here in Indiana, and I'm also trying to run my own campaign here for state rep.
Fantastic. And listen, Rainwater's got a lot of legs and a lot of momentum going right now, and I think we all need to hoist them on our shoulders and keep them running well. So Serene, how are you this evening? And are you in California at the moment, or are you out gallivanting around the country?
I'm in California, but I just got to my home, my primary home last night, and it's been a very full day, and I'm just glad that I still feel the ground beneath me.
Now, Serene, we met you in California, as I said, at the Libertarian Presidential Convention. And Helen and I were completely impressed by you. You know that. And we've, been since, thank God, become, friendly and friends, in my opinion. But how has the road been since California? Have you been finding the momentum continuing to build? I know it's always a challenge, but how has it been?
It's been quite a learning experience. I'm very grateful for all the people I've met and what I've learned, especially it's changed my perspective significantly on politics. I'm able to see a lot clearer. I also became a state delegate, and so I got to see different aspects of the party. As you know, I'm running as independent now. I didn't get the nomination, and I had to remember why I started, which was really to promote certain values, to help unite people, to help wake people up. And I realized I have to finish what I started no matter what happens. This is a movement, and I am finding more and more people aligning with me and with my visions and my message and being supportive. And I feel like all the interviews that I've been doing, especially lately, because people reach out to me. And so it's really nice to be interviewed by people that get me, that see me and what my strengths are. I was just on the Brian Nichols show a couple days ago. I was on Lions of Liberty earlier this week. I think it was this week. Maybe it was last week. But these people see who I am, and so they ask really good questions to change the political conversation, because it's not just about politics that we're talking about, at
Right.
least with my campaign. You know, I'm talking about the human condition. And so I'm
Right.
really
And
grateful.
Right. We appreciated that about you, that it wasn't just solely and strictly about that. And what I will say is a lot of people may say, but you're the voluntary option and you're libertarian and this, that, and the other thing, and you have an independent candidate on. Well, yes, I have an independent candidate on. I have an independent candidate on. I'd have a Republican on if they were a good candidate. But I haven't found one that I'm willing to get behind. So that's probably why. But I'm not worried. I don't worry so much about what letters before your name as what you really are saying and what you're going to do. And that's and another thing I can say is I believe what you're saying. And that's a lot of the times where I have a hang up with, you know, choosing someone that I'm going to possibly give my vote to, is to actually believe they are truly speaking what they believe. And I wholeheartedly believe that you do speak exactly how you feel.
Thank you. And, you know, one of the realizations I had is, you know, I've been a libertarian before I knew I was a libertarian. So those are my values. That's my lifestyle. That's what I bring everywhere I go. And if we can have a libertarian government, regardless of what it's called, you know, we win.
Right. Now, let me ask you a quick question. And again, about everything doesn't always have to be about politics. In your opinion and in your run, what do you believe are some of the non-political problems that we're facing, and what solutions do you believe you could put in place to correct them?
And this is very libertarian, I think, that I feel that there's a lack of personal accountability, personal responsibility. There's a strong desire for instant gratification and entitlement. And recently I realized, you know, the solution, which is my favorite 4-letter word, is work. You know, we have to work to make our dreams come true. We have to work to thrive. And so I'm trying to find a gentle way to encourage people to work on themselves, to be responsible, to delay gratification, to look at the bigger picture, to be more logical and less emotional.
Excellent, excellent, and I believe you exemplify that in everything, the way you do, the way you carry yourself, and the way you present yourself, and it's always in your message. But I wanted others to hear that, because listen, I believe too, if we can settle down and calm ourselves down as a people, we'll make better decisions, we'll think more rationally, and we won't become so easily fear-mongered, frightened, or pushed into situations in which I believe we shouldn't have been over the last, 9-10 months here.
Yeah, we will wake up eventually. I'll be there to help.
That's right, and I'm glad. That's glad. And thank you, Serene. I appreciate it. Now, Dan, you're running for governor now. And again, I met you at the California, in person, met you at the California convention, presidential convention. And now, since you're switched now to running, still under a libertarian ticket, but as governor, how's it been going there for you in Texas?
It's been going good. We're kind of we haven't officially launched the campaign yet. We're kind of helping the Libertarian nominee at this point, Jorgensen, to kind of, we don't want to distract from that since this gubernatorial run isn't until 2022. But we are developing our strategy. We are building our team. We've got a lot of great stuff in the works. So yeah, I mean, hopefully right after the election, you'll see some pretty awesome stuff from us.
Awesome. And that's good. And listen, I agree. You got 2 years to do it, and we definitely should be concentrating all of our efforts on trying to get not only Joe, but all these fine people and everyone else that's running in our party to office, just to obstruct the balance and offset the balance of power, for lack of better terms. But Dan, I love having you on because everybody knows you change your name, and taxation is theft and such. But in in to be all true about it, taxation is theft. I mean, it truly is. And I don't think people get that until you break it down a lot of times for people. That, to me, puts it in lay terms. And I appreciate that you do that. Now, my question is, how do we get people to embrace the fact that now that we have them understanding that we can accomplish and do all these things without taxing them 16 ways to Sunday, how do we get them to understand that bills will still get paid, we'll still be able to, proceed in life if we're not paying mommy and daddy to do it for us?
Right. I think there's a lot of different ways to explain it, and it really, each person kind of wants to hear it a little bit differently. But one kind of one size fits all explanation I can give is, if somebody robs a market and they take all the money from the register, and they say, now I can feed my family, and you tell them, yeah, but that's stealing and that's wrong. And they say to you, well, if I didn't steal, how else would I feed my family? What would you say to that person? And of course, usually it would be something like, well, why don't you get a job like everybody else? But it's, obviously the government's not going to go out and get a job. That's not how it works. But there are other ways for the government to raise revenue. We look at the post office, that's a revenue source. We look at the courts that charge fees. Like if you want to, if you've got a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and, you stand to gain a lot of stuff, you're going to pay the court. And this already happens. You're already paying court fees for these processes. Everything that the government does that's useful to us, they already charge for. Everything that they do that's not useful to us, they pay with stolen money. And those are programs we can absolutely get rid of, or people who appreciate them can fund them voluntarily.
Right. And so, and again, I think that people get distracted by the fact that when we say taxation is theft, that doesn't mean they're never going to pay a tax again, or they're never going to pay something, to help their community or to better them.
I'd say they never would, ideally.
Right. Ideally, I wish we never. All never would. But I think that that's going to again come in. It's going to come progressively, but I believe that if we don't get people that are going to be aggressive about it, see, this is, and again, I'm in a room of people from the party, and Joe wasn't my first pick. She wasn't. I mean, obviously wasn't my first pick. I worked on Kokesh's campaign. I've had relationships with many of the other candidates, and I had a chance to speak with them all. But yeah, and Joe wasn't. She wasn't my first. She wasn't my second. She probably wasn't but my fourth or fifth pick. Honestly, to represent, and I picked her based on principle. She was my candidate based on the fact that Jo Jorgensen is LP principle. Boom. She should have it tattooed on her, on the back of her shoulder or something, because I won't make it a sexist comment, but she should. I mean, she is true LP, and I think that that's helping us in this election cycle solely on the fact that people are truly seeing the ugly of the red, and blue. The red and blue are joining together, and we're seeing that purple bruise that they're causing us all. And I think that, having her there this time and having her wave that, yellow flag is good for us. But she wasn't my first pick. Honestly, Dan was above her in my picks, and Vermin was above her, and and Adam was above her. But I want to see Larry Sharpe run. I don't know if all you do, but I just want to see Larry Sharpe run for president of the United States, because if he does, I'll be a busy man for as long as this campaign is, because I would do everything I could to get the man in office. But what I'm trying to say about this is, what I was trying to get to this was, if even though Jo wasn't my first choice, I believe she carries the flag well. Do you believe that that's going to help us gain some ground in this election where we might get to that 5%, Dan? Or do you think that we're still going to be struggling to get to that point this time around?
I think there's good and bad to it. I think, the LP did a little bit of good by picking someone who was more principled than they have in the past. That's great progress. At the same time, I would really like to have seen them pick somebody who's ready to just go balls to the wall out campaigning.
Yes. Yes.
I think she could be a lot more aggressive. And you're right, we have a perfect opportunity, but we had a perfect opportunity in 2016. Nobody liked those two options. Everybody was voting for the lesser of two evils. And there were so many people who were convinced that Gary Johnson was a sure shot and we'd absolutely win just by the fact that everybody hated the other two candidates. And that's just not the reality.
Right.
Something that I struggle with the Libertarian Party all the time, and I call them out on it all the time, is they really need to be aggressive with their marketing. It's not enough to just sit there and be ignored by the press. You're dealing with two parties that are multi-billion-dollar brands that control. They have partnerships with media and all these organizations. They have mailing lists with donors and billions of dollars flowing through them all the time. The Libertarian Party doesn't have that, and you're never going to get there if you don't advertise. And I know so many people. I've worked with entrepreneurs and so many people trying to start businesses, and it's interesting because I've seen them do the same thing. They'll invest. There was a woman who I know who invested more than $500,000 in her business, but refused to spend a single dime on advertising. You're never going to get anywhere like that, and her business completely. That's one of the things we have to do, and advertising is of course expensive, especially if you're trying to reach 320 million people. But the more, if you do a little bit of outrageousness, you will get that attention. And I think Vermin Supreme captured that really well. He showed that in, the amount of people that he was able to reach with his campaign. And, he's maybe not the most libertarian, but he did carry the libertarian message very well. And he got a lot of people to wake up to that message. So I think he did an amazing job. And I kind of wish my hat was as big as his when it came to that.
Absolutely. And we love his hat. And let's just hope that Vermin's work and the work of his team reaching the young, because he reached the youth really well. And if he can continue to keep that momentum going and we can get some younger people involved, interested, and actually exercising their right, we may end up getting to that 5%. And I kind of hope we do. But good answer, Dan. I agree with you 100%. Well, Ramon, how are you running? Are you running in a 2 or a 3 party race at your point in time where you're at in Colorado? Ramon? I think his mic is muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm running in a 5-party race. There are multiple parties going for the U.S. Senate seat, but obviously the top 2 will be the Democratic and the Republican candidate. The thing about Colorado, though, is this is where the Libertarian Party actually began. So I would say a lot of the legwork has been taken out. So people, to a certain degree, know about the party who are active in politics. But the problem is, if they were already active in politics, more than likely, if they're still voting for Republican or Democrat, it's very difficult or damn near impossible to convince them for the Libertarian Party. So my goal is to continue to reach people who, again, either don't vote or it's that unaffiliated population where they're just looking at the Democratic and Republican parties and saying, what are my other choices? So for us, I would say in the 5-party race, that's pretty much what I'm going out there doing. I'm just meeting people, going out to, especially during this COVID time, it's definitely different, but going out to bars, restaurants, just speaking to people, and whatever chance I get, I try to make it as informal as possible, just come off as, hey, I'm not going to stick my hand in your face and just say, I'm running for U.S. Senate, just first thing right off the back, but actually strike a conversation with people and get them to know about not only myself as a candidate, but the party as a whole. So then they can be more informed and see if, they actually believe in what we're pushing forward. And that's that's the ultimate
Have you
goal
been
right
finding
now.
that you've been getting party support, or have you been finding that the party, or that you need more support from the party? Because I believe me, been having conversations over the last couple of weeks with people that are literally abandoning the party and running under other tickets just because they're saying they're not getting the help that they were promised. And I'm just wondering if the party's supporting you supporting you there.
It's half and half. There are people in the party supporting me, and then there are others not supporting me. And I think this is where it comes down to beliefs. Libertarians tend to be the toughest critics from what I've learned over the past couple of years. This is my second time running. I actually ran for U.S. Rep in 2018 as a libertarian as well. But I want to say this isn't just with the Libertarian Party. When I ran as a Republican in 2016, it was the same thing. And it's about people wanting to be impressed. And ironically, what we're trying to do is get people to be informed, but it still seems as if we have to impress our own people within the party to say, like, hey, we need to get you active. We need to get you out there because I can't do this on my own. I still work a full-time job. And even though I know we just went through this whole taxation thing, I actually work for the government in taxation. So I'm a pure anomaly within the Libertarian Party. And I give people this idea that, I'm the one that actually understands how the system works. If you're going to listen to anybody talk about taxes and say, hey, let's actually get, at least minimize them, if not get rid of them, it would be me. I can talk about taxes all day. I prefer not to, but I could. So I think that's where it comes down
I get
to.
that. We come home from work. We don't want to work still. I kind of get that. I 100% get that. But hey, listen, I still, at the end of the day, want them to stop robbing us. And if by some strange coincidence we're lucky enough to end the Fed and cripple the, defund or get rid of the IRS, we'll find you a job somewhere, man. I promise you.
Well, I don't work for the
IRS.
That would be illegal if I worked for the federal government.
Right. No, I know. I get it. But I appreciate it. Let me move on to Morgan real quick for a second, just so people can get to hear a little bit from him. And Morgan, how's the race going with you again? And are you running just against an incumbent, or are there other parties involved too as well?
Well, right now it's a three-way race here in Indiana because of our ballot access laws. I mean, there are only three parties that are on the ballot automatically: Republican, Democrat, and Libertarian. I'm in a district that's predominantly Republican. The incumbent here has consistently won since 2012. There is also a Democrat in the running, and she's very much, I would say, a left-wing progressive Democrat, and she ran 2 years ago for this very seat, and I think if I remember right, she got 27% of the vote. I mean, it's that predominantly Republican. I have to say, as far as my campaign, it's really been more just been more about dealing with the nuts and bolts of it than anything else. I mean, I've been having to learn the hard way, just about trying to get things set up for donations, trying to get a website going, and so on. I will admit, at the moment, I'm running. It's basically a one-man team. Yours truly, right here. But I've been trying. I'm trying to do the best I can. I do have, and I am seeing 2020. This campaign is really just really phase one, because I do plan on running for the same seat again in 2022 and maybe 2024 as well. So as I see it, the goal will be about trying to just keep building up between now and election day, and then beyond as well. So
I hear you. It's unfortunately, I hear that story more too often that most of our candidates are. I mean, it's hard to find support, people to knock on doors with you. You do a lot of the legwork and the work yourself. But that leads me to something that it just came into thought as I'm sitting here and talking amongst y'all. and looking at this great group of people that could actually represent us. And then I look to the left of my screen and I see two people that run for president, and one's still running. And I've got the question to ask you two specifically, just really quick. If you win, say Joe wins the popular vote, okay, can she win the Electoral College? Serene, let me hear from Serene first. Yeah, Serene, do you think that if Joe wins the popular vote, that she could even still win the Electoral College?
If it's ultimately across all the states, I believe so. There was some legislation that was passed, I believe, in July, where the electors have to vote the popular vote. The Supreme Court ruled on that, so that happened in July, because they don't want any rogue electors, because apparently there were a few in previous elections.
And that was my concern. Is just the fact of the matter is, even if the duopoly sat back and said, just because you're voted into the Electoral College doesn't mean that you have to cast your vote for whoever the people voted for. You could cast it for whoever you really truly wanted to. And in this world of politics, I don't think it would be odd to see that. Dan, do you?
I'm sorry. I'm still kind of fixated on the first part of that question, because I'm really like, my belief is that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't even matter if she gets into office. What matters is, people need to shift their thinking from, the government's there to help us, and the government is our God, and we need the government to make all our decisions and everything else. We need to shift away from that. And I think, if people are voting for Joe because of that reason, and if she wins the popular vote, that's absolutely amazing. But even if she gets into office, we still have to deal with, but there's 49% who are still going to be electing representatives, who are still going to be putting up fights on different laws. And we still have a lot further to go. And, we have to realize the president doesn't make laws. A libertarian president gets to do a lot more than a tyrannical president, because a tyrannical president wants to do more than what their office allows, whereas a libertarian president says, no, we're going to do less. We're not going to enforce these laws. But we need people to shift from this mentality of the government can do whatever and tell us how to live our lives, into like, no, the government should work for us. It should be small. We shouldn't be subsidizing all of these billion-dollar corporations. We should own ourselves. We should represent our own lives, and we should not have to deal with the government in our everyday life. And I think that's the most important thing.
And I agree with you. And I think that if everybody would embrace that simple fact, this place could be a better place. We can make it a better place. But why do you feel? I mean, my whole thought thing still goes back to people are just so afraid. And what I try to explain to people all the time about change is that if you're not wanting change, your life's going to be quite mundane and boring to begin with. I mean, don't we want to progress and get better and have things happen? And, but that each time we take one of those steps, some change is involved. Just because for your entire life you've only heard of Republicans and Democrats doesn't mean that they're the only ones that know what they're talking about or are the only ones with solutions. So my question to every one of the four of you, and I'm going to go around the horn on this one because I did it on last week. I forgot to do it on last week, is, Serene, how do you explain to someone that voting for you isn't a wasted vote?
Well, look, before you asked me that, I was just thinking about change. And the thing is, nothing stands still. We're either evolving or devolving. So if we keep making the same decisions over and over, we are devolving, not evolving, especially if we're not happy with the outcomes. As far as voting for me goes, what I realize is that even if I don't win this election, it is the energy behind the level of consciousness it takes for somebody to choose me over everybody else, or to choose Joe, right? Because we're the outliers. And so that gives us energy to move forward, and that helps break the cycle that we're in. And so if people want better, they have to make better decisions. And so I've been trying to have this conversation in as many ways as possible. It's like, this is the beginning of a paradigm shift. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just getting started. I expect to be at this, not necessarily running for president, but working on improving the quality of life for all living beings for several more decades. And I'm starting with politics because we need to shrink the government. We need to shift our values so that people are working together at solutions instead of delegating to people who aren't necessarily as competent as they are. Just because somebody is elected doesn't mean that they know better, doesn't mean they have all the answers. So I'm really trying to shift this in people's mindsets to help them understand that we just can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting it to be better and saying, oh, not this election, it's too important. Nothing will change if we don't have the courage to make better choices. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. And I love that line that they always use. This election is so important. Every election is important. You're hiring somebody to run the country, for Christmas sake. There's no one that's more important than the other. And Dan, what about you? How is that wasted vote battled? How do we battle that wasted vote line?
Well, to your point about this election being the most important, well, yeah, the next election is going to be even more important, as will the next. So you might as well waste it on this one. But
right.
The wasted vote thing, it's a wasted vote. If you expect that you're going to go vote for somebody who's not one of the major parties, or you're going to vote for even somebody who's a major party but not likely to win, and you're going to expect that they're going to walk right into the government and change everything to be the way that they talk about in their political rhetoric, that's a wasted vote anyway. It doesn't even matter if it's a major party. But if you want to see real change, waste your vote on a minor party. Waste your part on a third party. Vote for Joe. Vote for Serene. Vote for an independent. Because ultimately that will actually do more damage. When you consider, okay, there's, let's say there's 100 million votes cast, one vote more to the Democrats or to Republicans, they're not even going to notice it. But when votes start adding up outside of that, when they start saying, oh wow, the Libertarian Party is growing, or the independents or the write-ins are growing, more people, imagine one election where maybe nobody wins the popular vote because so many people are writing in their own name, but the Republicans and the Democrats only get 10 votes each. Maybe they still win because 10 is more than everybody else who wrote in their own name, but that's something that they're going to notice. And what's really important about that is that controls the political dialogue, which means all of these lying politicians are going to start pandering towards what these independent people who are waking up really want, which, I mean, they kind of already do and they get away with. But when they all start pandering to this group of people who are tired of listening to politics, and they're all saying the same messages, and they don't have anybody across the aisle to point to and say, well, I wanted to give it to you, but he wouldn't let me. Well, that's when they all start getting, that's when all the protests start showing up outside of their offices, and people are like, yeah, you know what? You're full of shit. We're not listening to you anymore. Get out of here. It's time for us to really get behind somebody from another party. That's somebody who's not a liar. That's where the real change comes from.
I agree with you there. And I could say the biggest wasted vote, if you think of things politically, is to Joe Biden this time. He's been in office for 50 years and he hasn't done anything but bury us further and further. I mean, you can complain about Trump all you want. He's been doing it before. This other idiot, people keep electing him for 50 years, thinking of he finally hit his head on the right side and he come up with the answers. And Ramon, what about you? What is your battle, and what do you think that we could tell people to convince them that a third party vote isn't a wasted vote, that it's actually a vote that's going to benefit them?
So the best explanation I can give to people when they come to me with that rhetoric is just, well, let's say we just go back to the two-party system. How can you convince me to vote the way that you're going to vote? You always have to ask them a question. You have to challenge people to think beyond their own understanding. Because again, if you look at my former affiliation, if you thought I was going to vote for Joe Biden, by definition, if we're just going to go based off of party affiliation, I was formerly a Republican. So if I'm supposed to vote based solely off of that, I would have voted for Trump. So now I'm asking them to convince me to vote otherwise. And a lot of the talking points they present back to me saying, oh, essentially he's not Trump, that's a poor argument. So what I ask them is like, look, who do you want? What are your ideal characteristics in a candidate? And then when they tell me what they want, then I say, okay, does that help benefit the government? Because it's always about pros and cons. And hopefully you can
Right.
get with people and have a discussion with them long enough to do so. But so when it comes to like Dan and saying taxation is theft, I break down taxes easily with them. And so they're like, okay, we agree with you on the taxes, because they don't want to hear any more about taxes by that point. But when it comes to like social issues, when it comes to other economic issues like tariffs, I tell people Donald Trump was for tariffs. So that's to all the conservative people out there. They're like, well, he was helping farmers. I was like, no, he hurt farmers. He hurt you too, because now the food prices went up for you. Go figure, unless they put more money back or give more money to the farmers to create subsidies to keep those food prices low, which means you're getting taxed more. That means you have to see me possibly. And if you do see me, I can assure you it's probably not a good thing. So that's where you get those catch-22s, and you really get people to think. And it's always challenging them, again, beyond what they're currently understanding, because they don't really have that opportunity just going with the Democratic and Republican rhetoric. You have to get people informed, because if we're just trying to impress them, that can only last for so long. We have to keep their attention. It's like people's attention spans are very short. So if we inform them, they're going to impress themselves and actually know who they want to vote for, what they want to vote for.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer, and I think questioning them, like I do that all the time when I'm asked why. Well, that's a waste of vote. Why are you voting for her? Well, I can sit here for an hour and a half and tell you what her principles are that I believe in. Can you do the same with your candidate? Go, start.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear 5 minutes of positive that you can offer me that's going to convince me that I've made the wrong decision. And I think that's great, because again, a lot of people don't, like you're saying, don't even know that they're candidate. They don't know what they stand for or what they run for. A lot of times they don't. They're just unfortunately voting what's next to their name. That's a great battle. And Morgan, how about you? How can you battle, or how do you think we should be battling this whole wasted vote topic?
I think the key word I would use is trust. I know as a voter in the past, I have voted on the basis of who I would trust the most to do the job. And I think the problem is that's the wrong approach. And I think what I would say to voters is this. I mean, look at the people that you have voted for in the past. I mean, you voted for them because you trusted them. And I think the right approach should be is to vote for someone who will trust you as the voter to know what is best for yourself. I mean, someone who will trust you to know what is best when it comes to education, health, environment, et cetera, et cetera. And I think as a candidate, the way I would when it comes to what I would advocate for solutions, I would say what I would pursue is I would pursue repealing laws, or I would pursue legislative solutions that give you more freedom, greater freedom, to be able to make those decisions to the best of your abilities.
I agree.
And I think, and I think at the end of it, just come down to instead of asking you, the voter, to trust me to know what's best for you, I would ask that you would actually. I would ask that you would vote for me simply because I would be able to trust you. I trust you to decide what is best for yourself, because I at least recognize that I don't know what's best for you. I know what's best for myself. But
right. No, I know what you're trying to say. I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I get that, and that's missing, unfortunately, from our leaders. They don't take our personal needs, thoughts, and wants, as in my opinion, is why we put them in office to begin with, to carry them out. But that they don't believe in it. unfortunately. Listen, I've seen I've seen a lot going on in the challenges that all y'all have to face out there. And one of the biggest challenges is media, like Dan was saying. Now, a prime example of how media, even when media gives us a mention, how we can try to maybe take a negative and turn it into a positive, is Joshua Flynn, who's running in Chicago. And the Chicago Tribune has actually backed the Libertarian candidate and endorsed him as their candidate. Now, I can't remember the name of the other big publication that's there, but the other big publication literally stated in words that Joshua Flynn is the better candidate, but we express our endorsement to his opponent. Now, what do we got to do to get media, even when they admit we're better, to get on our side? I don't know what more we can do than to just be the better candidates and just hope that it catches on. How are we gonna get over that media speed bump, Dan? How are we gonna get that? Is it gonna take just the LP finally concentrating its funds in that direction, or doing specific fundraisers for that to be prepared for that, or how are we going to get over that hump? I guess is that going to be just private by the candidate? Is the candidate going to have to really truly come up with that on their own?
It's let me address that point. The Libertarian Party needs to help their candidates, and they really don't. They expect the candidates to do all the heavy lifting on their own, or to organize with some volunteers within the party, and sometimes that works, but really, a lot of these candidates come and go, and they don't have the training. And we try to fill out the ballot in a lot of states, just get paper candidates on there. And sometimes that's how I started. They convinced me to run as a paper candidate, and I was like, wait, I can actually do something with this. And I got active with it, but I got no support from the party. There were some people within the party that reached out to help, but the party has these resources. The party's building lists, mailing lists of volunteers and donors and all these other things. And they should be sharing that or using that. They don't have to just hand over the keys to the vault to everybody who wants to run, but they can be sharing that resource with people to help them raise money and do these things. They can be having, somebody who's media savvy, help reach out to these campaigns, help them do their press releases and everything else. But ultimately, because we are ignored by all these media outlets, it still comes down to money. It's all about the money. And, the media is paid advertising. Sometimes they measure it as earned media, where it's free, but it's worth, however many hours of airtime you get. It's the same thing. And what people don't realize is the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are not just the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. You look at like all these organizations, all these George Soros funded organizations, this Fight for 15. Fight for 15 is an organization. BLM is an organization. NRA is an organization. And they've all got their parties that they usually cling to. And they're not officially part of the parties, but they are running billions of dollars through their organizations, through donations for lobbying efforts that are mostly attached to a specific party. And the Libertarian Party just doesn't have that. They expect, we'll just have the party itself and that's enough. And no, these organizations are really what's driving some of these bigger parties. So yeah, we need to get over that hump. We need to get the money in, and of course, it's difficult to get the money in when you don't have all these special favors to sell, like the bigger parties do. But that is something, and we have to raise the money, and we have to use it in ways that not only raise awareness for a candidate, but raise awareness and educate people to the libertarian reality that the government does not own you. And when people see these things. And this is kind of how I work with like I donate to candidates, to other candidates, and I donate based on whether or not I see what they're doing is reaching people. If they're just running and they're just trying to raise a few bucks and put up a couple yard signs, so what? I'm not that interested. If they're getting noticed and they're creating real change and they've got a message that's educating people and it's reaching virally thousands and thousands of people, then yeah, I'll give them some money so that they can boost those campaigns. and reach even more people. But that's the type of thinking we have to do. But, I also advocate for all of these candidates to start building their mailing lists, and nobody within the party, very few people do this. Nobody in the party is advocating it. Every candidate needs to build their mailing list and continue with that list election after election after election, and build and stay in touch with these people and continue to educate them. Even if you're not going to run, tell them to run for the next person who's running in your spot. That's the kind of organization that the big parties have. And this is, this is how you beat the $1 billion system. You really have to get organized and work efficiently and strategically.
Mm-hmm. And Serene, let me ask you just specifically, just because I know someone in California that has been challenges. And I said, they switched parties. They said, screw it, I'm going to run Republican. I'm getting no help and no support from within the party. Are you seeing that all over California? Are you seeing it as maybe being county suppressed? Because I'll never take nothing away from Mimi. I love Mimi Rogers. I think she's probably one of the best chairs we've got out there. But how do we are you seeing that people are getting help, or are you seeing it spotty, or are you seeing like chosen people like Dan is seeing?
Well, my very first San Francisco Libertarian meeting, there was a Republican running for office that showed up to try to get our support. Right. So I feel like if you're not a Democrat, that it's a lot harder in California in general, especially in the more urban areas like San Francisco. I've lived here since 1984, but I looked at our history, and since 1964, every single mayor has been a Democrat, some flavor of Democrat. And so it's difficult being, an outlier, whether you're Republican, Libertarian, Independent here, because people are just kind of stuck on Democrats. But I believe that's really changing a lot this year. I feel like a lot of my friends are waking up and starting to make different decisions of how they vote. And I think things are changing in the political sphere, that we're going to see a lot more of real progress happening, not just in California, but across the country.
Do you think the recall Newsom thing that's going on out there right now is helping with that, is helping to bring other parties to the forefront and such like that? Because I know the recall Newsom thing is a big thing out there. Nobody wants that man in office.
Yeah, and this is actually their third attempt at doing this. And on top of that, in San Francisco, there's a recall for our mayor, and there's a recall for our district attorney. So people are starting to speak up, like on Nextdoor. I see people commenting about how disappointed they are with the leadership that we have in the city and state. So I think, apps like that are helping people wake up, because they're having conversations and they're sharing information. Like, I didn't know that our mayor and many other people in our city hall are being investigated by the FBI and stuff like that. I learned from Nextdoor. I'm like, wow, this is great. And they take me to legit documents. These aren't conspiracy theories, but the media has been suppressing it. It's not in the mainstream news, because it goes against, what most of them, they gotta earn a living, right? And if they write bad news about the people that have been paying their bills, it's a conflict of interest.
I know. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I was saying, like, I can remember, and I'm much older than you, so I can remember. But I can remember, like, watching Walter Cronkite, like, say, on the news. And the news was delivered in such a different way, and the man had an actual knowledge of the news he was talking about, not just reading something off of a teleprompter, trying to convince people to behave or to convince people to act a certain way. And I think that we're using our news more as a tool of propaganda any longer than we are to actually educate our people. And like you're saying, the things they don't want us to hear about, or they don't want them to know about, you'll never see that on the nightly news.
Yeah, there's a lot of suppression, and it's tough. Like, I think about Michael Bloomberg. Like, why did he run for president? He's already got money. If he wants to make a positive impact in this country, he can. He owns media. He doesn't need that position. And so it makes it kind of obvious, like, to understand, like, if people are genuine or not. And then he donated all this money to Biden. Again, he doesn't need to do that. He's making statements when he does that. And again, he could do anything he wants right now.
Right. Well, and the news shouldn't be biased in any way. I mean, it's there to report fact. It's not there to choose a side and say, oh, do this. Because with all his money, like everybody thought he could. Everybody thought, oh gosh, just like he did in New York, he can go in and buy an election. Well, unfortunately, we're finding more and more you can't always just buy an election. You need a lot of money, and if you got a lot of money, your chances in the election may be a bit better. But you just can't buy every election. If you could, we'd have a heck of a lot different, looking. But I'm glad it's not, believe me, because I'm so sick and tired of the rich thinking that they can decide what's good for me. I mean, God, I live in the dirt, folks. I live off grid. I moved away from every bit of anything that I could consider having a governmental hold on me, except for the $130 a year I pay in taxes for my 10 acres of property. I mean, I if I didn't have to pay that $130 a year, I'd be even happier. But just I've gotten to the point where I'm just so fed up with the government feeling as though they have to be in every part of my business that I just moved away from it all and now live. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have heard any of the recent, and I don't like to just pick on Biden, but he's easy to pick on at this point in time, in my opinion. I mean, Trump's always been easy, but Biden's making it real simple for us too. I mean, especially if you're anybody that has any kind of sense of liberty. I've listened to all of his campaign ads, and some of these TV ads, and they scare me. They literally scare me. I feel like I have a Marxist face looking at me and saying, everyone in the nation will do this. Everyone in the nation will do that. Well, hold on a second. I belong to a nation of individuals. I don't belong to a nation that can be blanketed by anything. What works for you in Minnesota does not work for me in the desert of Arizona, does not work with a guy that lives in California on a mountain, or does not live in the Appalachian Trail. Everybody has a different living situation. We have to get away from this polarization of government and back to some local rule and such. But I'm telling you, man, I'm to the point now. We're moving off of this. I still don't feel that freedom. And why? Because I know every day I watch on my rail lines as I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tanks and stuff. And people go, oh, well, that's just for military exercises. Well, go exercise somewhere else. We don't need the military we got everywhere in this world. We're sending our kids overseas to be killed. We're sending them overseas, and if they aren't killed, they come back damaged. They come back damaged to the point where we over-medicate them, and then they may, unfortunately, 22 a day, decide maybe to take their life. And when we can finally sit back as a nation and understand that all of these decisions are being made by people that are making these decisions and things happen to us, when do we get sick of it? When can we get away from it? And when can we all just sit back and go, we all are here for the same reason, to make it to our last breath. I want mine to be as pleasant as it possibly can be. Let me respect myself and my things. You please do the same, and let's live together. And I hope that kind of resonates with everyone, because I believe that, I mean, we're especially libertarians. Just think of us all when we get together. Like any of y'all that have been to a convention or an event, we have a good time. We drink a lot. We joke a lot. We eat pizza with pineapple. I mean, we do these things just because that's, and just does pineapple belong on pizza? I'll let you all decide that for yourselves. but honestly, there's a different way to do things. But if we don't embrace the way that the red and blues are doing them in some fashion, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is we're never going to get to it, because they are organized. And like Dan says, we're not. We don't pay attention to, think of Obama. Obama was a senator for 2 years. He was the perfect candidate, though. He was perfect for the situation and the time and everything that had to do, and the Democrats groomed him. And they took he was just a one-term senator. He was a senator for 2 years. How much did the man actually know about running the country comparative to anybody else? No, nothing. But if we as a party could pick the person not just at our convention. Hell, we know all the candidates. For Christ's sake, we're all friends in some sense. Let's find the right person. Like I love Adam. Y'all know he's a good friend of mine. Truly just a good friend of mine, Adam Kokesh. Even if he wasn't running for president, he's a good friend of mine. But Adam would be the greatest advisor for localization. He has the platform. Freedom is there. He could take any candidate that people, because unfortunately we have to fool people. And if we didn't have to fool people, it'd be great. But if we could put the face that goes with the message, we may win. Look at Vermin. Gosh, Vermin runs around with a boot on his head. Dan walks around with his big hat on. These, people will look and go, well, why would we want? But don't look at them. If you put a deaf guy in front of these people and they listen to them, they may vote for him. And I think we all have to try to enter into that more. I think we have to pick the right people. We have to get behind the right people. I have committed to Arizona. After Joe's rally the other day, we met at Denny's, and I committed to and I want to get 18 state positions, viable, true, real run state positions run. We have 9 positions we can run that are state and federal in this state. And if we can make that impact, that's good. But because you're talking 20 people and you got 2 years and you've got 18 counties, for Christ's sake. It's a lot of work, but it's not that much work if everybody goes to work. And I wish I was there to help each and every one of you guys individually. I really do. I offer anything I can do, whether it's my platform, whether it's sending emails for you, whatever it is I can do for you. Please reach out. Please let me know, because I want good people like y'all in office. And I'm sorry I just went on that little rant, but sometimes my mouth gets going and I can't shut it up. It happens from time to time. But Serene, I want to thank you. That's what makes you
libertarian.
That's absolutely right. That's why everybody says, well, how long is the show? I said, I don't know. It's an hour, so figure 2 or 3. But Serene, thank you for joining us, honey. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Helen and I hope we run into you and we see you out in California soon. Dan, thank you as well. Yeah, there's Serene stuff. Everybody, please visit www.serene2020.com. Show this young lady your support. And yeah, she is the healer in chief. Honestly, if you talk about love and someone that really wants to heal the nation and make this a better place, a place we can be proud of, that we can all get along and live in harmony, that's your candidate right there. That's not all she's going to do. But premise, man, I love that. I love the premise of it. Thank you again, honey. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Dan Berman, always a pleasure to speak with you, sir. You're one guy whenever I see you on a podcast, I tune in because I value your opinion. I can't wait for this good gubernatorial run of yours. Please, guys, visit www.danforfreedom.com. Donate to Dan. Get on there. Buy some of his gear. He's got some great gear as well, where we can spread message. And, it's things like that. Sometimes we just have a shirt on and people will look and they'll say, holy crap, look at that. Where did you get that? Or what's that about? And the next thing you know, you got 2 or 3 more people that are in the same mindset as you and don't understand. A lot of times, like I say all the time to people, you don't realize how libertarian you are until you go and read about what the party stands for. You really are. Ramon, man, good luck to you in Colorado, man. Thank you so much. It was a great interview. I hope to do another interview with you some time down the road. I really enjoyed talking to you, but I'd like to do some one-on-one stuff with you too, especially talking about taxes and stuff like that, just to get a little bit different opinion that I get from when I normally would talk with Dan. His website's up. Everybody, please visit his website. Again, donations, folks. Dan has already expressed to you the importance of media, and media ain't cheap. It ain't cheap unless you're doing it like this. And, this doesn't reach the hundreds of thousands of people that we need to reach in his area. But I want to thank you again, Ramon. Thank you for being on the show.
Glad to be on.
All right, great. And Morgan, you too as well, sir. Please, man, put your feet to the pavement. Get out as many emails as you can. Be online. We've got his stuff up too. Look at morganrig.com. Let's get onto Morgan's page as well. Share them around if you're in the area. Listen, guys, these people have a sense and idea of what's in your best interest. And Morgan, I want to thank you again for being on.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. All right, folks. I'm going to about wrap the show up for this week. I want to thank my guests. I want to thank you all that listen to this for at least having an interest in a better place for us all. As the sun goes down here in Arizona and my room becomes a little bit darker and the lanterns just light the place, you too can choose your freedom. You truly can, in which you decide to live. But it's up to you to make those choices. And if we all just did that and just respected ourselves and each other, we would live in a beautiful place. Larry Sharp always says, that libertarians are as conservative and as liberal as we choose to be, but we just don't force that upon people. And it's not up to us to force our opinions or our thoughts or anything on people. I'm just here to open your eyes to a better place for us to be. It's a better place in government, in my opinion. But I don't think that living somewhere where you're not told what you can say, you're not told where you can gather, and you do get benefit from your hard work and production into something, rather than feeling as though you're taken advantage of, you're enslaved, and you're made to just live to live. I watched a show, and I remember what show it was. Now it was Adam versus the Man, and Dan Berman was a guest on that show this past week. And when he broke down mortgages and the lies that this government, it tells you, more people own homes in America than no. More people are in debt to banks in America than they ever have been. And I the perception that they're making things better and easier for us. The dollar isn't worth a thing any longer, folks. It's not really worth 3 cents. So we've really got to start concentrating on the things that are going to make it better for us instead of continually to benefit them. All right. I'm not going to ramble on any longer. Everybody, Pete Yable from The Voluntary Option. Until next week, live the freedom in which you choose to live.